Welcome back to another review by Elaine, because I have opinions. Today we're going to talk about The Long Earth by Terry Pratchett and Stephen Baxter. So I got this book because I walked into my favorite used bookstore down in the quarter and asked for a paperback by Terry Pratchett. I didn't want a hardback because they don't fit in my purse. And the gentleman owner was like, "How about this one?" And I bought it without doing anything more than just looking at the title. Which I love doing. I love diving into a book that I know nothing about. And I knew so little about this book, I did not realize it was sci-fi until I got it home. This is the only science fiction I've ever read by Terry Pratchett, and I have never read Stephen Baxter at all. But I love seeing Terry Pratchett's sensibilities with another author again, but also in a world that I'm not used to seeing them. So the basic premise of this book is that a random physicist, I think he was, releases the plans of an experimental device called the Stepper onto the internet, which leads millions of kids to creating one and trying it out at roughly the same time. And what does this Stepper do? It allows almost anyone to flip a switch and step into a parallel version of the Earth. It turns out there are millions of these versions of the Earth, almost all of them completely absent of humans. Physicists theorize that all these worlds are basically our world, but with one contingency different. So, like, there are worlds where the asteroid that destroyed the dinosaurs did not hit, or the impact that created the moon did not happen, or the specific subspecies that led to humans never evolved. But most of these worlds, especially the ones closest to us, look almost exactly like our Earth, just without people. The story features Joshua, a man who discovered on the first day the Stepper was released that he did not need a Stepper to cross to other parallel worlds. He is a natural stepper, one of the small percentage of people who can step without any aid whatsoever. Then there's Lobsang, a computer program who has legally proven he is actually the reincarnated soul of a Tibetan motorcycle repairman. There's Monica Jansen, a police officer who is put in charge of figuring out how to police a society where people can just step out of our world into literally an infinite number of other worlds. There's Sally, a woman who has been stepping since she was a small child because her grandfather was the scientist who created the Stepper. And a cast of other random people who have been exploring the Long Earth. This is one of those sci-fi books that I think of as more of a concept book than a storybook. Now, don't get me wrong, this one has a story, a beautifully ridiculous exploration story that slowly builds into a real quest to save the entire collection of Earths. But at its core, the bulk of the book is just imagining what the concept of multiple instantly accessible Earths could mean to government, society, economy, anthropology, and humans in general. One of the biggest questions of this book is what it means to be human. Can Lobsang be human if he now exists only as AI? Are humanoid ape-like creatures which have society but don't build cities more like humans than humanoids that directly evolved from dinosaurs who do build cities? Because yes, spoiler alert, they do find other humanoids out there in the Long Earth, but none of them are human, and some of them are not even related to humans. But also, is it a natural part of human nature to crave the presence of other humans? Is changing our environment a part of human nature? Side note here, I did find it really fascinating watching my own emotional response to the concept of pristine natures on these other Earths being cut into and destroyed for refineries and logging. But there's also the question of what makes humans special. What makes us different than all other life that we have discovered as of yet? And these are interesting questions, especially when handled in a book that is at least partially written by Terry Pratchett. Because, at least to me, Pratchett has a different way of handling humanity in his books than anyone else I've ever read. And usually that can be sort of set aside as a product of the fact that he's writing satire, but this book isn't really satire, and some of the weirdness is still there. I've always had trouble putting my finger on what makes Pratchett's characters different, but I think it has a bit to do with an intensity of emotion, or a lack thereof. Pratchett's characters often feel more vaguely miffed than enraged, more mildly concerned than terrified, more contented than ecstatic. And when they do show intense reactions, it often feels like it comes out of nowhere because Pratchett hasn't told us how they are feeling throughout the entire build-up. There are times that this is honestly rather jarring, especially when he's on the rare occasions that he's writing love stories. The characters often seem to just be living an adventure next to each other, and then out of the blue say something vaguely, awkwardly flirty, and I'm like, oh, he likes her! But this is something I've honestly always seen as a feature, not a bug in Pratchett's writing. It's part of the reason Pratchett characters feel so unlike anyone else's. Now keep in mind, I don't know in this particular book how much of this can be attributed to Pratchett and how much can be attributed to Baxter, because I don't know Baxter's writing at all. But it's just something I've seen throughout Pratchett's writing of all the things I've read of his. So the answer, in this book at least, to the question of what makes humans special, I think is meant to be the desire to change our environment and our loneliness. Okay, huge spoilers ahead, like all the spoilers in the world. But near the end of the book, our lead meets a creature that developed on a world that evolved through collaboration instead of competition. Which, interestingly enough, made a world where there is one sentient life form occupying the entire world. And now that creature is intensely lonely, and is stepping through the worlds to find other life. But in so doing, is basically absorbing all these other worlds. And this is the creature, of all the life they have met along the way, this is the one that Joshua feels is most familiar. This is what they were searching for. This is the creature at the end of their quest. And here's where things get sort of interesting for me. I think this creature, called First Person Singular, is maybe God in this book. Religion is both omnipresent and oddly absent in this book. Joshua was raised by nuns. Lobsang is able to argue he is human because the court cannot deny the possibility of reincarnation. Many of the groups that go out to colonize the long earths are cults and oddball religions. But we don't ever get discussions of characters' actual religious beliefs. We don't know if Joshua believes in God, if Lobsang actually is a Buddhist. Most of the characters we meet, we never find out if they believe in anything. And yet, there is this constant thread throughout all the conversations in the book of what is the long earth for? Why was the universe set up this way? And that presupposes that there is a why. That someone did set things up this way. Even Sally, who is aggressively atheistic, talks about places in the long earth as if they were designed. Joshua and Sally have this interesting conversation near the end of the book where they talk about the collective presence of all consciousnesses forming reality. That the world exists as it does because of how every sentient being perceives and imagines it. And that is what First Person Singular is. She is the embodiment of all consciousnesses of her Earth. And it seems unignorable that she identifies herself as First Person Singular, which immediately brings to mind the burning bush saying, "I am what I am," in the Bible. So in this book, God is a worldwide sludge of consciousness that is so lonely she will travel across parallel worlds absorbing everything she discovers. And she's also a parallel to human consciousness? That's one hell of an interesting look at the idea of God. The other thing I sort of have to talk about is the ending. So, if for some reason you're still watching after that other spoiler warning, huge spoiler warning here, the book ends with a terrorist group made up of the rare percentage of humans who cannot step, setting off a nuke in the middle of a major American city. Which I'm still asking, why? Like, yes, there was buildup, like, it doesn't come out of nowhere, but the First Person Singular bit felt like an end, So why did we keep going to Madison's bad day? And I really don't think this is a mistake. This didn't feel like one of those moments where the author just didn't know where to stop. So I know there is a why. And it's a lovely scene of people coming together to save as many people as possible, but it's still a major terrorist act. And I can't help but feel that it is a counterpoint to God. If God in this book is a collection of all consciousness forming reality, what of the people who don't feel like part of that reality? What of those left at home when humanity moves on? Which is a larger part of humanity? The violent urge to destroy what we can't be part of, or the loving urge to be part of something? And I think this book squarely comes down on the side of the desire to be part of something, while also not shying away from the horror of being subsumed into a whole. It's a really interesting book.